Hey, welcome everybody to Wednesday Wellness. We are so thrilled you're here where we can be well, get well, and stay well. I'm Eileen Whipple and I'm your host tonight. And I am so excited to be able to bring a friend on who I met about 2 years ago through another friend for water actually, and for oxygenated water. And his knowledge about water is something that I felt was so important to share with you guys, because a lot of us think we could only have to do one part of our health, where our health encompasses a lot of things. And as you know, we've been talking about health freedom this month, but with environment. And part of the environment is air, food, and water. And I don't know that we give water enough credence. And especially after I've spoken with Michael multiple times over the last 2 years, I know I hadn't given water enough credence and value. And so I would like to go ahead and introduce Michael. He is here in Arizona. He's with Exceptional Water Systems. It's his own company. And they have figured out how to do great things with water and why it's important. So welcome, Michael. Glad to have you tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad to come on and talk about a little bit of water here.
Yeah. Tonight, what I would like to do is we're going to have a little bit of a conversation back and forth between you and I, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So people who have questions, if you'll post those in the chat, and that way we can filter through those a little more smoothly rather than just having you unmute, so we can use our time effectively. So Mike, if you would please share with us, how come you got so interested in water?
That's a good question, actually. Several years ago, probably a little over 15 years ago, I actually worked for a commercial pool company. And at the time, I really didn't know much about water, other than, I enjoyed being in water and swimming and so forth. But other than that, I really didn't know a whole lot about it. And after working with them for a short period of time, I realized how how terribly water was treated in different environments, commercial environments, and how, when you're adding chlorine and stuff, and the chloramine smells you get, and how toxic they were and so forth. It just gave me a whole different view of water. At that point, I realized, gosh, I can't believe I've been getting in a swimming pool for all these years. And dealing with, exposing myself to those types of toxic chemicals. So I had a whole different view on water after a very, very short period of time of working with it. So, but that's kind of what got me into water is several years ago.
And then you just mentioned to me when we were talking on the phone that you also noticed some health things with your grandchildren. What was that like?
Yeah, so, over the years after I started really wanting to dive deeper into, water in general, basically, chemistry and so forth, and understanding in there. If you'd asked me, sort of, say 10 years ago, would you have gotten a pool? The answer would be absolutely not. I wouldn't want a swimming pool. Even though I was in the industry and so forth, I was like, no way, I wouldn't have a swimming pool. Until I started learning more about the water and doing the treatment methods that we do, which are natural treatment methods, I became very interested in having my own pool because of the health benefits. So one of the things, I got 7 grandchildren. And, a couple of them have psoriasis and eczema, so they have skin issues, and they're very sensitive to getting in any type of chemically treated water. So they can't enjoy the swimming pool if it's got chlorine in it, even just a small amount. It can be a half a part per million or so forth. So when they're done swimming, or even during that time period, they'll break out in these hives and so forth all over their legs and arms and stuff. So we can't have chlorine in our swimming pool. But fortunately for us, we, a while back, we actually were renting a house, or a family was in, and we had to throw the put our system in there, kind of looked like a laboratory experiment because they wouldn't let us put it in their pool house. I'm like, that's fine. I'm going to put it in my pool regardless. So we set it up on the side of the pool to treat the water. And so the whole family got to enjoy the water without any issues. So that's kind of what got me more interested in understanding the health side of it. And that was, oh gosh, that was probably 8-9 years ago when we started that portion of it, of more of the studies, more in-depth studies of it.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. And so let's shift a little bit into water that we put inside of our bodies. So you talked a little bit about the water we bathe and swim in, right? But what about the water we put inside of our body? You threw some amazing statistics at me and some things that our bodies are 75% water, and yet we ignore the value of water. So could you expound on that?
Yeah, one of the things you were talking about when we were discussing that is, in my beliefs and my understanding of water, water is one of the most amazing elements that was ever given to us. And if you really think about it, water actually used to have numerous minerals in it. I mean, not just talking calcium and so forth, and just being alkaline and having a high pH. So most of the bottled water and stuff that you see nowadays, they always talk about alkaline water and having a high pH. That's not healthy water per se. Water was meant to have numerous minerals in it: silica, calcium, alkalinity, iron, potassium, all these different things, magnesium. There's numerous different minerals. And if you do a little research on it, you'll find there is a long list of minerals that were in water. Like you were saying, we're made up of 75% water. And what's the one thing that keeps us alive? Water. Our brain is almost 90% water. So if you think about that for a moment, most of the time people say, like these viruses and stuff, they say, oh gosh, these viruses are just getting terrible. They're not getting terrible. Not in my opinion, they're not getting terrible. We're just not getting the vitamins we used to take way back when. We're not getting it. We're not getting it in our foods. When you look at, and I don't have to give you the statistics, this is something else you can look up all the vegetables and stuff. People talk about that a lot of times, a lot of scientists and so forth that look up the vegetables. They don't get the vitamins that they used to have. And it's all part of the soils and so forth that they're using. They don't get it. So, and you'll read about that. You can find that in numerous different articles here and there. So water, you obviously have to have water every day to survive. But there's also yet another element to it. One is you've got to have calcium. Calcium is one of the most important minerals water actually wants. Believe it or not, water actually wants that. If it doesn't have it, it's going to take it from somewhere. It's just aggressive. I don't care how much alkaline it says the water is, it's not balanced unless it has calcium, period. So if you tried to take your fancy water and say just even simple, fill up your swimming pool with it, it's going to eat the plaster off your swimming pool. I promise you it will. So very, very simple analogy, but yeah, that's what happens, that RO water that you drink. So it's actually stripping the minerals from your bones and your joints and so forth. Really simple analogy is, I used to tell people this a lot, they would ask those kind of questions, is they'd come up and they'd say that they had achy joints and so forth, bones and so forth. And I say, hey, do you drink RO water? And most of the time the answer was yes. And I said, try drinking some mineral water. Stop drinking RO completely for 2 weeks. Just try any mineral water that you can find that actually has minerals in it, numerous minerals in it, okay? And just try it. Sure enough, the answer comes back is like, wow, what a difference just from having minerals in it. I said, absolutely. I said, and that's the thing, I don't need to tell you, I can tell you this, but you need to be the person to try it. So once you try it, it's a whole different animal. But nonetheless, so the second part of like what we were talking about is the oxygen being in water. Obviously, that's what we specialize in, is ultrafine bubble technology and adding oxygen to the water. But having that extra element of oxygen in the water is super important. So once again, going back to the human body, we're made up of 75% water, but the water is no good unless it's full of oxygen, or at least has enough oxygen in it, just as well as plants, animals, aqua life, and so forth. If it doesn't have any oxygen, it cannot sustain life. If we don't have oxygen, we aren't going to live. So you can't have one without the other. And same thing, you'll hear this in a lot of different places from a lot of different doctors. We're lazy breathers. We don't really take in as much oxygen as we need. And oxygen is such a, over the years, I really have developed a much better understanding of just how important oxygen really is for the human body. And what it does for healing. It's just absolutely amazing, whether you're drinking it or whether you're bathing in it, having that extra amount of oxygen, because most of us, and this is coming from doctors as well, is most of us have some sort of inflammation and swelling within our body somewhere, either it's your back, your bones, your joints, anything in your body. Most of us have that in there. And just by being in the oxygen water or drinking it, just depending on what your problem is or what your body is going under, it makes a huge difference for every person that's drinking it. And everybody, it's a little bit different.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So also for me personally, when I got introduced to the oxygen water, I saw a different shift in my health, and my mobility actually is what really was a visual that was very dynamic with me when I started getting into the oxygenated water. I want to go back a little bit to the RO system. So we're putting RO systems in our homes, at least I did way back when, because before I met you, I actually had an RO system in my house. But because of all the chemicals and the things that are in the water. So what I hear you saying is do we need the RO system for taking out those things that the government's putting into our water? What's your take on that?
Well, to me, it's like a double-edged sword, seems like you can't win. So when you treat your water with RO, it's like, which evil do I want? So you can take in, if you don't treat your water, you don't know what you're taking in actually into your home or what you're drinking. Because unfortunately, even when you bathe in the water, your skin being the largest organ on your body is going to absorb whatever's in there. So if there's metals, and a lot of times, trust me, numerous cities I've been in, even Scottsdale and Gilbert, Mesa, they have metals in their water. Your body's absorbing all that. Do I want to absorb that? Absolutely not. So just like Wendy Myers talks about detoxing and so forth on her podcast and so forth, very good information to learn a little bit more about what it does to the human body and so forth. But do I want my family exposed to those type of chemicals and metals and stuff? Absolutely not. One of the number one things is, when you run it through RO, you're taking out all the bad stuff, but you're also taking out all the good stuff. So, and it's almost impossible, not totally impossible, to put it back. Now, how do you put it back into your entire home, all the minerals that you need? So you're not going to inject magnesium, iron, calcium, and all this other stuff back into the water, because you stripped it all out because of all the bad stuff that you don't see. And unfortunately, the hard part about this whole thing is, you think about it, there's places like Florida, the highest amount, you know what they have, the highest waste in their drinking water of a prescription drug, you know what it is?
I said high blood pressure medication.
Testosterone. So these people have the highest amount of testosterone in the nation in their drinking water system. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm like, how is that possible? Well, the federal government, believe it or not, allows 25% of your wastewater to be mixed with your drinking water. So now obviously it's going to go through a process, but nonetheless, 25%, that is allowed. That is a federal regulation. It is allowed. So you can look that up as well. But it's crazy. So, but here's the other thing is you have to have a specific test kit for every pesticide, every pharmaceutical, everything that goes into the water, all of these major industries, these labs and so forth that do all this testing and so forth, or even just industrial waste. You got to have a specific test kit for all of that because there's no one test kit that tests for everything. So a lot of this stuff probably goes under the radar and gets into your water and you don't even know it's in your water. I mean, you think of way back when, Flint, Michigan, that stuff that took place. You don't hear about it until afterwards. Oops, sorry, that got in your water there. Sorry, it affected everybody. But yeah, there's nothing we can do about it other than say sorry. So you're either going to be part of a statistic or you're going to save your family ahead of time, or at least try to protect your family as best you can before that happens. So I would rather not be part of that statistic and just spend the money and do the right thing for my family beforehand.
And so on that note, when I was talking with you, you were telling me that you had a client who actually wanted to put a water system on his house. And you had said to him, no, I think you need to get it tested first. And he got it tested and everything was good with his water, but he was still wanting a water system because he didn't want water spots.
Yeah. And it's a unique situation. Don't normally run into that. And actually, I talked him out of it. He actually ended up not getting a system because he had some of the best well water I'd ever seen and all these other natural minerals and stuff that he has in there. So I discouraged him from buying the system. I'm like, why are you going to put a system on there? It's going to make your water worse. You have great water. It's super healthy. I said, I would come up and take some of your water and bottle it and bring it back home. It's that good. And yet the one thing we complain about is obviously modern technology is meant for running with clean, crystal clear water with nothing in it and so forth. But you know what? Water's meant to have those things in it. So I just look at it like you're ruining the water. So at the beginning of anything, if you're ever wanting to put a system on of any type, doesn't matter what it is, you got to spend some money and do a full test. The full test is probably going to cost you, about $300 to get a full extensive test to know exactly what's in your water, what are you concerned with, and how do you need to treat it? What's the process? Every city is not going to be the same. So, you go to city of Scottsdale, city of Tempe, different states and so forth. They're all going to be different. They're not going to be the same. Even when we're treating swimming pools, that's the first thing I want to know is what's your incoming water look like? I need to know what to expect because even if you put a system on there, it's like that old term, you heard it, polishing a turd. It's exactly what you're doing. You're polishing a turd. It's the same thing. So your water is no different.
You got me on that one. I wasn't expecting that. Oh my gosh. So people are asking in the chat box, they said, what water test do you recommend? How do you find a place to test your water?
There's a water testing facility online you can go to. It's WaterCheck. I believe it's watercheck.com. And they do for well water, for city water and so forth. They do a very extensive test. They'll send you a kit out. They give you the instructions on it. You send it back and you get a very long, extensive test results from that. So that is the one I recommend. Local companies aren't really going to have the ability to test that many different parameters in there. So it'll be like literally a 2-3 page test results coming back from that. And it'll tell you pretty much everything that's in your water.
Wow, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to think of anything else that we had talked about that is there anything that there's so many things we could go down, so many rabbit holes. I know that you had mentioned to me one time when I was in your office that depending on where you are with your water line, like the beginning of the water line to the end of the water line, depended on the quality of your water, even in the same city. Could you expound on that?
Yeah, so I've had clients where, they came in and they enjoy the spa for a month at a time and so forth, and they decide they wanted to purchase a system for their house. So it goes back to the same term I said. It's like, it's all dependent on what water you have coming into your house. So he had our system on a spa he had purchased, and he'd come in, he says, Mike, I'm not able to use the spa because I'm breaking out in these really itchy bumps all over, red bumps all over my arms and body and stuff. And obviously I know oxygen doesn't do that to you. So I had him bring in a sample of his water. Come to find out, as he's walking through the door, I thought he was kidding with me. I could see the metals in his water as he walked through my door. And I thought he was joking, and no, that was his city water coming in. And I said, well, I already know the answer. You don't even have to step any farther than that. I said, it's your water coming in. Come to find out, he had lots of metals coming in the water. And the reason why is because he was at the end of the pipeline for that city. So he gets all the junk. Whatever left in that line, he gets all of that junk. And so he had to go through, he had to put a different filter on his spa. So when he fills it, it can actually pull all that stuff out of there. And then he was able to use his spa. But yeah, and everywhere is different. I know that's probably a little bit more difficult to find out. He just happened to know that he was at the end of the line in his city. So that was kind of an unfortunate situation.
Excellent. So you're mentioning metals in the water. I know that I have a neighbor who actually did a hair analysis test, and he found some metal in the hair analysis. And so he went to investigate it. And what he found out was that a few years ago, the levels that was okay for that metal was here, but because the government said it was too expensive to take it out, they changed the standard to be up here. So quote, it was okay water. So the standards even get changed. And so I think that's important to note that, what we hear today is maybe not, we need to go beyond and say, well, that's not okay for me.
Yeah.
Right. So there's another question here after you get your test results, do you recommend a filtration system if you need it?
Yeah, absolutely. If you need it, those are the things those are the things you need to test for. So whatever your test results come back with, and this is what the question was, sometimes people ask is like, well, what system do I need? And it's like, well, I don't know. Let's see what your water looks like first. So you do your test results and you test the water, and then hopefully you can find somebody in your area that can help you out and go, hey, I got high amount of this, and this, and the other, and see what they need to put in to get rid of or take care of those things. Because like I said, it's very unique. So if you're up in the northern part of the state and you've got really good water, well, and you're only dealing with spots on your hardware and stuff, well, that's a whole different issue. You don't want to strip all of your water just because you have spots. You take care of just that issue. But otherwise, it really depends. So once you have gotten the test results back, then at least you can use that for whatever company you decide you want to use a water system with. And then they can look at that. And I definitely don't give up your test results, because then by the time you put the system in, guess what? You want to do that test again to see if they actually took care of it. Because a lot of times they'll tell you, oh yeah, we got that, no problem, we'll take care of it. And then you don't get half of it. I've had some, I won't say name, but some of the number one doctors, very prevalent in the US, had a specific system that they sold on their home. And one of the friends that we work with, he actually ended up putting his system and taking their system off because it wasn't really changing the water quality in their home, despite the fact they were pushing that product. So I thought that was hilarious. I'm like, oh my gosh. So he doesn't even have his own system in his house. So,
Well, he knows the value of water, right?
yeah, yeah.
So we're down to 5 minutes. I want to conclude with one question. People who live in apartments and people who live in rental houses, what is something that they can do that would be helpful for them?
They sell filters you can put, like if you have your main shower, they have filters you can put on the head of the shower. You can also do, like if you're just going to be drinking out of the sink, you have under the sink systems that you can purchase. One of the things that you just need to remember is very few systems have the ability to put minerals back in the water. So one of the most crucial things I can say is just make sure the water you're drinking has some calcium in it. Because I'll tell you what, right now, you can go to the store, I promise you, pick a bottle of water. I don't care what it is. Pick a bottle of water, take it home, see if you can test for calcium in there. The answer is going to be, you're not going to find any in there. Okay. It'd be some homework for you to go check for yourself. So, but try and find one that actually says it has calcium in there. There's very few out there that are actually going to have that in there, but I would suggest either putting an under the sink system in. You can actually take it with you. They're relatively simple to put in and take out. So I would do that. And then, like I said, you can actually put something on your shower head as well. They have filters that you can do, but it's better than nothing. I will tell you that.
Excellent. Thank you. So, and when I repost this onto YouTube, I will put the links for your pool conversation and for a water filtration system that I chose to get in my home. But one last thing, I'm sorry, I know this is going to take us over, but I know you told me something about oxygen and the body, that the body uses oxygen, like it goes to the brain first, and the last place to go is scar tissue. What is that?
Heart first.
Oh, your heart. Okay.
Your body has its hierarchy per se. So your heart gets it first, your brain gets it second, and then the rest of your body takes it in as needed. One of the cool things is we learned over time is after being in the water that we create, which is the ultrafine bubble technology, we actually had a swim school director. She's in the water, 4 or 5 hours a day, and the scars on her feet had healed. So she had something on her toe. She had some surgery about a year prior. And that scar, she called it her Franken toe because it looked ugly and she was very insecure about it. But that had gone, it just disappeared. And, I was amazed to hear that. Obviously I didn't see it, but I was amazed to hear it. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, what, you got rid of your scar? And so as I was learning over time from different doctors and so forth, the way it was explained to me is that your body has that hierarchy. And because the one thing is we have, for say, a lack of oxygen, we don't have as much oxygen in the air as we used to. A lot of it's polluted. We're lazy breathers. The rest of our body doesn't get the amount of oxygen it needs, et cetera, et cetera. So it made sense. So when you're in the water is actually helping your body to do the work it can't finish, which is finish healing your scars. So I thought that was pretty neat.
That is very interesting. All right, you guys, it's the top of the hour. And Mike, I cannot thank you enough for sharing your wisdom. And I hope everyone has been able to glean the knowledge of how important water is for our body, and oxygen, and that calcium. And go forward. And I hope everyone can find the resources they need. I will be posting a couple of additional links. I know there's a government website that shows all the city waters, but I know that's changeable depending on the season and time of year that even is, that those are posted. But those will be resources that everyone will be able to use. So I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, and especially our guest star, Mike. Appreciate you. And I'll put his information out for anyone who wants to get in contact. And please join us every week on Wednesday Wellness, 6:30. We will be back again next week and still tackling the topic of freedom with help and environment. As you can see behind me, I've got all my stuff still set up because we weren't able to tackle all that conversation last week. So thank you everyone for coming, and we'll see you next time on Wednesday Wellness.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Does anybody
Good
have
night.
another additional question, or everybody good? All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Oh.
Appreciate you. All right. We'll say good night.
Thanks again, Eileen. Have a
Thank
good
you,
one.
Mike. All right. We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So as you guys know, after we finish our meetings, we have a question and answer period with the panel that we have on for the night. And one of the people that had a comment is Dr. Jessica Huss. She is a water physical therapist, and she has worked with the oxygen water, I think about 2 or 3 years at this point, and the benefits that she has seen after being in the pool for so many years as an aquatic therapist. So Jessica?
Yeah, I would love to actually just say one thing about Mike and his water systems. I cannot say enough about them. I have been an aquatic physical therapist for 19, almost 20 years. And so I've been submitting myself to the chlorinated pools for years and years. And I have experienced tremendous outbreaks and hives and all different things that can happen when you have bad water. It was a dream come true when I found the water that Mike and his systems are able to build on their pools and other places. It is so clear, the ability to use the least amount of chlorine that is absolutely necessary is so key for my health. I'm able to stay in the pool longer now. I'm not fatigued when I get out of the water. It actually gives me more energy rather than depleting me. And always, like, it's important for me as a physical therapist to see what my patients are doing under the water. And the clarity of that water is unbelievable. Like, it is like looking through glass. So I cannot say enough about Mike. He's a very humble person. He's being humble here tonight. And I just wanted to share how much of a good thing it is that he does for everybody. And, you know, if you're looking for a good, healthy system for your pool or for your home, reach out to him. It is worth it.
Thank you, Jessica, for sharing that. And once again, you guys, thank you for coming to Wednesday Wellness. And I plan to see you next time on Wednesday Wellness. Be well, get well, stay well. Thanks for watching. And remember, one change can have an enormous effect. Remember to subscribe, hit the bell and the like, and we'll see you next time on Love to Live.